Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at Pet Boxing on Twitter for boxing related tweets, or you can subscribe to the channel and get notifications whenever a new video is uploaded. So it's going to be a very different video. There's been some controversial debate going on the Twitter page. So let's discuss it a little bit. It started with Ishii Smith. Now, first and foremost, I'll say that Ishii, listen, I've never met Ishii before, but I know a couple of professional fighters that know Ishii, that have sparred with Ishii, and they both say he's a very nice guy. So there's nothing against Ishii Smith. The debate doesn't actually include him at all. He just put out an initial tweet and it came from there. His initial tweet was Bud cleaned out 140. But the Cold War between PBC and Top Rank, not being able to secure those big names at welterweight, which is BS for us fans, that's why there's no way to rank him above Canelo. Just don't see it, or how anyone can still have him first. Look at Nelo's body of work. So my response to this is 99% of people, and this is not a throwaway number. I'll post the statistics. I'll show you that this is true. 99% of people felt that Golovkin beat Canelo twice. In most people's eyes, Canelo isn't even the number one in his own division, let alone the number one pound for pound. Crawford is the pound for pound number one right now, in my opinion. He's proved himself as the dominant guy in 2 weight classes and is one of the 2 top guys in the 3rd weight class, okay? Now, when I say that 99%, I've mentioned this article before. I found it on Reddit this time. It's somebody who's compiled all the scorecards of all the pundits, media outlets, all the former fighters who were present at the fight ringside. Of those 59 experts, only 2 of them scored the fight to Canelo Alvarez. Okay, let that sink in. They also collected fan scorecards, and of those, which are a lot less reliable because there are biases involved, but of those 1,733 fans that voted on their poll, I think it was a boxing scene poll, the average scorecard was 116 to 113 for Gennady Golovkin. Now, you can't be telling me that somebody tried to tell me that this was Canelo haters. Canelo's got a huge fan base. If you're running a poll, more people are going to be voting for Canelo based on sheer fan base than anything else. So don't come and tell me it was Canelo haters. But anyway, that's a whole other debate. Let's get back to the debate at hand. Now, at this point, the former fighter BJ Flores, who actually follows the page, I doubt he watches the videos. I've never seen him comment. It's probably just one of those things where he followed the page once and yeah, he must have seen a comment he liked, he followed, I don't know. But he got involved and he said, dude, look at Crawford's resume compared to Canelo. Champions, longevity, 154 to 175. Don't even compare. You on that Kool-Aid. And let me guess, Crawford deserves 50-50 with Errol Spence. Also, even though Crawford has never broken 125k buys, you guys are really out there. Now, I haven't mentioned Spence at all. Where I rank someone as a fighter in terms of their dominance in their existing division, so on and so forth, has nothing to do with whether they're the A side or B side financially. So I said, no, financially, I agree that Spence deserves more due to the fact that he generates more money. But like I said, 99% of people felt that Golovkin beat Canelo twice. So why should I ignore what I saw with my own eyes and crown a guy because 2 judges saw something that very few others saw? If it's longevity you want to value, then considering that Golovkin got the better of Canelo in most people's eyes, shouldn't he be your number one? Also, what is the basis for saying Canelo is above him? If Golovkin had gotten that decision, would you say he's number one? In other words, you talk about a very close decision. If Golovkin had got it, are you then telling me Golovkin's number one? Are you that easily swayed, BJ? Because I'm not that easily swayed. I trust my eyes. And then I went on to say, listen, if longevity is your litmus test, and bear in mind, I'm being very polite at this point. I'm not actually wound up at this point. I'd say it develops. Wait. I just say, listen, another shout for number one pound for pound, therefore, for you should be Pacquiao. If longevity is your litmus test, then Pacquiao should be your number one. Before Bernard Hopkins fought Sergey Kovalev, he should have been your number one pound for pound fighter. Longevity, right? So you have to be consistent. Now this is where he starts to get a lot ruder. And I can't repeat this because I don't want to get the channel shut down. But he starts swearing. and he says, who's on Crawford's resume? Are you? And he basically, he becomes very, very, I don't want to use the word, like I said, or there's algorithms on YouTube. I don't want to get the channel shut down. But he starts getting insulting. So I say, you've been saying this for years about Golovkin too. But how's Canelo number one, pound for pound, when in reality he's lost a couple of fights to Golovkin, according to most people? Because he was sitting there for years saying that Golovkin isn't the man at middleweight because he fought to be the man. And he would rate Cotto above Golovkin at middleweight, even though Cotto didn't want to fight Golovkin. One of the points I keep making to people, because a whole bunch of people then got involved, obviously fans of Canelo, fans of BJ Flores, is that if you avoid a guy, it is an admission of defeat. You are admitting defeat. You are handing over that scalp. Okay, when the whole division were fighting each other and beating each other and none of them wanted to fight Rigondeaux, what do you think that was about? How can you not rate Rigondeaux at the top of the division? They didn't want to fight him. Why? Because they knew what would happen. When Billy Joe Saunders, that's Rigondeaux, when Billy Joe Saunders, who everybody here knows I'm a huge fan of, but when Billy Joe Saunders came out in his younger years, when he was not yet ready to be an elite level, and he was being asked about a Golovkin fight, he said, Golovkin beats me and Eubank on the same night. Isn't that an admission that he's not ready to fight Golovkin? Isn't that an admission of defeat? Now Billy Joe feels he beats Golovkin, and you've got to respect that. Because one thing, whether you agree with him or not, you've got to respect the fact that he's honest enough and open enough to be able to self-critique and say, no, at this point, I'm not ready, and at this point, I am. But at the time, it's an admission. When Canelo Alvarez gave up his title not to fight Golovkin, is that not an admission of defeat? There have been so many fighters that Golovkin was calling out, wanted to fight. They didn't want to fight him. Well, the same things happened with Crawford. Why didn't Crawford fight Manny Pacquiao? Let's be honest. Why didn't Crawford fight Keith Thurman? Let's be honest. And I gave the, in fact, I'll read you what BJ said. So BJ says, since when did wanting the top guys get you the top spot for the pound for pound list? Bud needs to go and fight somebody already. So I gave BJ the analogy of a school bully. If a school bully approaches BJ, I said in the school, and says to him, give me your lunch money, and BJ says, let's have a fight, I'm not giving you my lunch money, and the school bully runs away, but the school bully's got a reputation of beating up other kids, are you going to turn around and say, that boy that wanted to fight the bully to protect his lunch money, he's got to hurry up and fight somebody to prove that he's tough, or until then the bully's going to be the tough guy? No, there's a reason you back down. There's a reason you didn't want it. And then BJ starts to say it's because he wants too much money. He's delusional, and he goes back to the pay-per-view and he says it's morons like you that take his side. I've told you already, when it comes to Spence, I've got no issue with telling you that Spence deserves the bigger cut. He's the A side. He sells more pay-per-views. But don't tell me that Thurman and Pacquiao didn't fight him for money. That was never mentioned as an issue. Come on now, they were both under Bob Arum. That wasn't an issue. Don't sell the guy short just because he couldn't get a fight. The reason he couldn't get a fight is because they know he's level. Now, it might be a risk versus reward factor. You might come to me and say to me, listen, there's too much of a risk there. He's not going to earn them enough money. Okay. But then if that's the case, don't come to me and tell me that he's ducking guys or he's unproven in some way. And then you start talking about his resume. Okay. Let's talk about Crawford's resume. Bear in mind, before I get into this, I've got no problem with people telling me Inoue's the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. I've got no problem with people telling me it's Alexander Usyk. Okay, I've got no problem with people telling me it's a whole bunch of other guys. There's different candidates. No problem. But don't tell me it's definitely Canelo and then dismiss the fact that so many people feel that he lost to Golovkin, and then you're talking to me about longevity. If he lost to Golovkin and you want to talk longevity, let's talk about the 21 title defenses he's made. Be consistent. But then let's analyze this whole idea of 154 to 175 dominance. And this is the problem, right? Because I think Canelo's terrific. I think he's an unbelievable fighter, Hall of Fame. But because they put me in this position now and I have to argue my case, I'm going to come across like a Canelo hater. It's going to come across as though I'm trying to undermine Canelo's career. I'm not. I think Canelo has been sensational. But if we're going to analyze elite versus elite, and people are going to start being rude on Twitter, then we're going to have to analyze it. I'm going to have to say a few home truths. For instance, I spoke about, they started talking about Crawford's resume. So first, let's talk about Crawford's resume. There might not be elite names that are going to go down in history there, but these are the same people that would say things like, who's Golovkin for? They used to say this a long time about Lomachenko. Who's Lomachenko for? We've already covered Rigondeaux. We've heard this time and again. Was Beltran not a very good, tricky fighter? How did he deal with Beltran? How about Gamboa? Gamboa was a smaller guy, for sure, but he was undefeated, and he stepped up, and it was a great fight. That was after the Ricky Burns fight, and Ricky Burns was another very good fighter. But sticking to Gamboa, you can't undermine Gamboa for being too small, but then praise Canelo for the 154-pound career, where he's fought a bunch of smaller guys at catch weights. Amir Khan, a natural welterweight, is fighting him at 155 pounds. Why aren't you fighting these guys at light middleweight then? If they want to step up to light middleweight, why aren't you fighting them at light middleweight? Lara, that was a catch weight fight. I thought Canelo lost. He fought 5 fights at a catch weight, smaller guys, that he made go above the limit. He fought Chavez Jr. as well at a catch weight of 168 pounds, draining him so he looked like a skeleton. The geezer looked like he was going to die before he walked into the ring. He looked like he'd had some sort of eating disorder, and you're putting him in a ring, the guy couldn't throw a punch. Now, again, it comes across like I'm hating on Canelo. I'm not. He's terrific. But don't hate on Crawford beating Gamboa, who was in his prime undefeated, for being a smaller guy, but then praising the dominance of Canelo for doing the same thing. And he arguably lost to Lara. Was Victor Postol not a very good fighter? Ndongo? What, just because he destroyed him? Look at Ndongo's resume pre that fight. A lot of these guys were mandatories. They were in the Super Series. What about Benavides? Is he a bum? Jeff Horn. Jeff Horn beat Pacquiao. Go watch that fight, count the punches. I've told you how to score fights before. I'm bored of this thing of ideas. I had another debate a while back with a journalist who was telling me it was a big robbery, the Horn fight. It wasn't a robbery. I'm sorry. He gave me an example of 1 round. So I went to the round and I did exactly what I've told you guys to do. Count the punches that have landed. And if not, look at, if not, has he affected the other guy? If it's a specific round where Horn's outlanding him massively and Pacquiao hurts him, give it to Pacquiao. But if Pacquiao doesn't hurt him and he's getting outlanded, what basis do you give the round to Pacquiao? Horn won that fight. So he's got to deal with Horn. It's not his fault. Now, Khan was washed, fair enough. Mean Machine's a good win. TKO as well. Kell Brook, past his best, way past his best. His punch resistance has gone. You know, it's a name, but he's gone. Felix Diaz, an Olympian. That's a good win. Now, these aren't guys that are elite level names. I give you that. I understand that. But when he's after Pacquiao, he's been after Thurman, and they don't want it. Don't tell me it's that he can't do it. I mean, talking of scoring fights, these are the same people now who are questioning Canelo Golovkin. They're telling me it doesn't matter if only 2 out of the 59 felt that Golovkin won the fight. It was definitely Canelo's fight. Okay. Round 12 was a decisive round. And I'm going to set you guys a challenge. I set this on Twitter too. I set you guys a challenge. 2 of the 3 judges gave the 12th to Canelo Alvarez. Go watch the first 90 seconds of that fight. Go watch the first night. Mute it. Put it on slow motion if you want. And tell me how many punches Canelo landed against Golovkin in that 12th round. Go count them. I'm not going to tell you how many. I'll let you count them in the first 90 seconds how many he landed. Then come back and tell me. Proper punches. Not like... listen, if he's caught him, just touched him, score it. But if he's grazed him with something, you know, it's grazed, it's not really a punch. Count how many shots landed in the first 90 seconds. Come back and tell me. And I'm going to test you if you have a number that's different from mine. So make sure you write down the minutes, the seconds and the minutes, so we can go back and look together. And then after that, tell me how the last 90 seconds went. Because you must have had one hell of a swing in those last 90 seconds to score the round to Canelo. So then watch that last 90 seconds and tell me if there's anything you saw which swings around to Canelo Alvarez. Now, I don't have a problem if you're going to rate names above. In other words, if you're going to come to me and tell me, you know what, Chris, I actually do rate Canelo above Crawford. I'm cool with that. But don't come out here calling me a retard and swearing at me when you've been sitting here for all these years saying that who's Golovkin, who's he beat, and you're rating guys like Cotto, who are smaller guys that didn't want to fight Golovkin at middleweight above him, but now all of a sudden Canelo's the man because according to you, in your world, he beat Golovkin. And all of a sudden now, Golovkin was an incredible champion. Before that, he wasn't an incredible champion. But now, all of a sudden, he's an incredible champion and Crawford fought nobody like him, yeah? And then it ended with BJ saying, you must be from Nebraska. Get out of here, man. Either be consistent with the way you're analysing, or at least be polite, but be consistent with the way you're analysing. You can rate him. You can rate him above him. I've got no problem with that. If you want to have Canelo above Crawford, cool. But it's going to take a hell of a lot to convince me that he's above Usyk, he's above Inoue, he's above Golovkin. Make your case. But don't just say big names. And you're talking about dominance from 154 to 175. What, should we talk about Kovalev? Was that prime Kovalev, was it? Was he not the weakest of the light heavyweights? Because listen, I've made a video on Anthony Yarde and Lyndon Arthur. And how I felt that the judging was a little bit unfair. But it was a close fight. I felt that it was a draw. He lost the fight officially. Cool. He lost the fight. But this is a guy that just lost the British title. He very nearly had Kovalev out of there. And Kovalev had been stopped prior to that. This is not the Kovalev that fought Andre Ward. Did Canelo go up to 175 and beat Bivol? Beterbiev? Has he beaten Gvozdyk? Now, he's won a title at 175. That's great. But don't tell me he's the light heavyweight king. Don't tell me he's dominated at 175. What are you chatting about, man? Anyway, listen, I like BJ Flores. I've chatted to him for many years. The first time we've ever had something like this. I've got nothing against BJ. I'm cool with BJ. I mean, he won't remember me. We're not friends or anything. We've chatted sporadically. But I don't understand this cognitive dissonance and people being rude as well on Twitter. What is this cognitive dissonance about? Make your case. Be consistent with it. Thanks for watching. Let me know what this microphone's like. I'm going to bring you another video discussing Billy Joe Saunders. I know a few of you have questioned me on Billy Joe. And like I said, listen, I've got no problem with people questioning me. When it's polite and stuff, I love it. I love debate. That's what it's about. That's the beauty of boxing. If everything was obvious, if everything was bait, if everything was just, yeah, we know what's going to happen, what's the point in watching sport? So it's about that divergence of opinion, okay? But think about how you're wording certain things and what it is you're actually arguing before you start getting sarcastic. Because at the moment in this world, we're seeing things where we're seeing this consistently. We're seeing people that are taking really passionate positions, shouting people down. They don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the science of things. There's this video that went viral online recently where this man was screaming at this woman, screaming at her about putting on a mask. And she was politely trying to tell him, listen, I'm exempt firstly, and secondly, the mask's not going to do anything. And he starts telling her, hey, you're killing people. You've never looked at a scientific journal, man. You don't know what you're talking about. So why are you getting aggressive to a woman? It's like, what is going on with people? Let go of that cognitive dissonance and analyze what you're saying. And just now, as I say this, someone called Fight Takes has put up a photo of Golovkin to show me his bruised face after the Canelo fight. So what? Different guys mark up differently. Lighter skin, bruises. Now, I know he's white, he's pale, Canelo. But generally speaking, Mexican Hispanic skin doesn't bruise as much. So what? So what? Anthony Yarde, because he's not that light-skinned, obviously, he's mixed race, but Anthony Yarde often says, listen, you just touch me on the face, I'm going to bruise up. What does that have to do with anything? How did the fight go? I don't care what the guy looks like. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. God bless.